Hello, everybody in the chat. Welcome to Get Lost, the show that asks you, why am I still talking about a television show that ended years and years ago? And why am I wasting my time watching two schmoes talk about it? Well, it's because it's fun, it's awesome, and I'm here with the coolest guy on YouTube, Kenny, ComicHead84. Dude, what's up?
You're too kind, John. We are here because Lost is the jam that keeps on jamming. And I was very happy to join my pal John, aka the National Treasure, aka the Man Wolf. Thank you.
The Man Wolf, yes. I will take the Man Wolf for sure, although I don't have a nice enough beard to pull the Man Wolf off.
You're working on it. You're getting there.
I'm getting there. Good enough for episode 1, but not episode 2, says Bueller. First one in the chat. Yes, Bueller, you get your first shot. Maybe we'll bring you in a flashback later on, as Lost always does. Wingnut, hello. Zach Hall, Mr. Miracle, Mr. Gretzky, from Heroes to Icon. Those numbers are cursed. Don't throw them in the chat, Mr. Miracle. You got to watch out. DK Comics and Cosplay and Wingnut, hello again. It is awesome that people are here to talk about Lost, or at least hear us talk about Lost. I promise you, Kenny and I will not go as long as Bueller and I did. I think we were nearing the 3-hour mark or something crazy.
Yeah,
we were like,
keep it tight.
It was bad. We're going to try to be a little quicker, but then also we're dealing with far fewer episodes tonight. For those that don't know, Bueller and I, we basically powered through the first 20 hours or episodes of the first season of Lost, just sort of bringing you up to date like a giant inoculation. And so now Kenny and I were going to clear the end of season 1 and really get into the crux of what becomes the valuable parts of seasons 2 and 3, which is this Dharma Initiative world. Kenny, how do you feel about Lost in general? Obviously, Bueller and I talked a little bit about where we came in, how we enjoyed the show. Some people catch it all on the streaming later on. Other people were watching live. Where do you come into this this television program?
I was lucky to catch some of it live and able to, in real time, follow along with friends and let the mysteries eat me alive inside between seasons and all that good stuff. But I technically got on board when season 3 was on television. It was midway through season 3. A couple buddies started to put me on to Lost, and we jumped right into watch parties at their house. Going through,
best, man.
Yeah, and I jumped and devoured season 1 and season 2, and then followed along live from there.
And at my house, we got on right at episode 1. My wife convinced me to watch the premiere. Wow. When it aired live. She was like, I heard good things about this show. She was a big Felicity fan. She liked Alias. So she was a J.J. Abrams fiend. And she's like, he's got a new show. I love Matthew Fox from Party of Five. We're going to watch this. And we dove right in, and then, of course, never looked back. And I had a blog. I had the whole thing. It was insane with my house. So I'm just glad to find that I wasn't the only one. There are clearly a lot of comic fans that loved this show, besides just the fact that it had a Mexican comic book in the first season.
Yeah, there were a few comic book references throughout. That Walt, Walt and Hurley were avid comic readers,
Well, and you were talking about the comic people behind the scenes too.
Yeah, there's comic industry peeps working on Lost. Brian K. Vaughan, I think, was probably the most hands-on of all the people that I caught. But Brian K. Vaughan and Paul Dini both worked on the show. So that's why it's so good.
Right? I was a big Y the Last Man fan. I remember being very pumped when I heard Brian K. Vaughan was going to work on the show, and that there was editing and writing elements and story room work that he was doing that was kind of cool. So I was really pumped to hear him get in there for sure. DJ Ron Ninja, hello. No Fire Guy Ryan tonight. He is waiting. He wants to do the end of season 2, so he's going to be the next guest on the next round. Kenny, on the other hand, he was like, dude, love these early season 2 episodes. I try to find somebody who wants to join that has a lot of love for the episodes we're going to talk about, and that was definitely Kenny this case.
Heroes to Icons in the house. Mr. Gretzky, my guy.
He says he only watched the last season live. The other ones he caught up on
Mm.
beforehand. And I think it's funny. Different people caught it different ways for sure.
And that's funny that you ran the blog because this was the first show that got me into the world of online forums and stuff because I never dug into that. And these mysteries and theories, I'm telling you, they burned me up so much, dude. I'm like, it was one thing to watch the episode and chat with my buddies afterwards, but I had this like insatiable appetite to theorize about Lost to where I'm like, all right, this is what's going on online with it, and I'm like
Right.
in
What
the
it,
chat rooms. I had my alias Lox Kidney was my alias in the chat room, and yeah,
it
just oh
well,
man,
it's a show that rewarded that kind of paying attention too. Like it really did ask that of you, which is one of the complaints I heard a lot was that like it asked that of you and didn't always pay off. And I could totally agree and understand that mentality. But for me, it paid off far more often than it didn't, and that
yeah.
was what kept me coming back and enjoying the discussions and the back and forth, the water cooler talk. You know.
Yeah, because one thing's for sure is like people on the forums and stuff, it appeared that they put more thought into some of these storylines than the writers did, for sure. I'm like, I don't think the writers are on your level, guy. Like,
No, not at
you know,
all.
and it's a job to them. They can't, I'm sure the show was their baby, no doubt. But at the end of the day, they're LA writer guys. I don't think they were sitting and uh, laboring over the show. Oh, first drop.
Caught it. That's all that matters.
Swift.
No, I don't think they could possibly watch it with that level of dissection and fascination that the fans were doing. But I will say that having rewatched, I was amazed how much time they did put into setting little things up. So
Yes.
let's jump into
Yeah.
season number one, the very end. We ended with Bueller on the death of the first real death of a major character on the show. Boone died tragically, and the point we left off was Jack sort of marching off to go find Locke because he was upset and felt like Locke was hiding something. We know what he was hiding. He found the hatch. And he's digging this hatch up to try to figure out what he wants to do. He feels like it's his destiny to get inside. And we are jumping right into a Jack episode called not a Jack episode. It's a,
Saeed.
where am I? The Saeed episode.
Greater Good is a Saeed episode. Yeah, a cool Saeed episode.
Saeed, basically, in this episode, is flashing back to his time in Australia when he was asked to sort of go undercover and expose a terror ring with some of his friends in Australia. And on the island, he's sort of using the same skills of being able to read people and convince people to do things by working with Locke to figure out what is it that Locke is really hiding.
Saeed's kind of like Daredevil in that way. He's like a human lie detector. He's like sniffing out your heartbeat. He's like, you're lying.
Kachung, it's good to have you in the chat. Perry Comics, hello there, brother.
Hey, Kachung.
Yeah, sorry, did I miss somebody?
Nope, I was just saying hi to Kachung.
I love Saeed episodes. For me, it's like it goes Sawyer, Locke, Saeed. Those are my three favorite guys when it comes to their flashes. I feel like I get a lot of emotion. I get a lot of like twists and turns. And I feel like their characters are always evolving in unusual ways. So this is one of my I like this flashback a lot because it's subtle. The stuff on the island with Saeed, every time you feel like he's being lied to, because as an audience, we are ahead of Saeed. We know things that Saeed does not. And Saeed is constantly surprising us in this episode by pulling out pieces of information that we're surprised he still remembered and then using it to figure pieces out that we thought there's no way he's going to guess this or there's no way he's going to uncover this. He is always surprisingly ahead of where we think he is knowledge-wise.
Right. Saeed kind of filled the role of almost like the MacGyver James Bond guy on the island. He was like, when stuff needed to get done, Saeed kind of filled that role. He was a bad mamma jamma. In this, I appreciated this flashback episode because, yeah, keep in mind, this was network television in 2005.
Yeah.
So we're only a couple years, not even a handful of years removed from obviously 9/11, where, you know, on network TV having a main character not only be a Middle Eastern guy, but leaning into it and having, like in this case, he's going undercover on like to thwart a jihad mission. So they didn't really, dance around a fairly hot topic of the time.
And he's Iraqi, and we just went through 2 serious wars in Iraq. Like, and so he was on the other side. Like, he was not even an American fighting it. They really pushed that envelope a lot. I totally agree. And in this case, it's somebody we root for usually. I think usually Saeed is the guy that we feel like, when he's torturing Sawyer early in season 1, we're like, yeah, Sawyer deserves that. Only to come and find out Sawyer didn't deserve it. And now this episode, we're looking at Locke, who's clearly been lying. His desire to get in the hatch basically led to Boone's death. He deserves to be interrogated, and we're happy to see him doing these things. So we're surprisingly consistently on Saeed's side with the decisions he makes.
Yeah. They treated him like, almost like a leading man. They gave him a love interest. He wasn't a stereotypical like Middle Eastern character,
Yeah, not at all. So this whole episode sort of culminates in Saeed being taken by Locke through to where Boone died, the airplane, and then Saeed pulling out facts like, hey, what is this hatch? I'm hearing about a hatch. Why don't you show me the hatch? And Locke tries to pull it over on him and say, no, there's 2 hatches on an airplane. There's a front and a back.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? They open it up. They find the drug stash that's in the plane. They find the broken radio, all these elements. And it sort of leads to Shannon trying to shoot him. She pulls a gun out on Locke, blames Locke, shoots him, like grazes his head
she like pulls the trigger. Yeah,
she legitimately shoots him, and Saeed like stops her from actually killing him.
Which was kind of frustrating because she pulls the trigger on Locke after Locke delivers what appears to me to be like a pretty genuine case for, hey, I am just as distraught. I didn't mean anything. I forget like his actual language on it, but he gives a really heartfelt take on the whole thing. I mean, I guess he's
because he genuinely cared for Boone. He did not want anything to happen to Boone. He tried to get him to get out of the plane.
Yeah. I think, and man, Terry O'Quinn, that dude's acting chops. I was amazed that I didn't see him everywhere after Lost. Because man, that guy.
I would say that for a lot of these guys. Naveen Andrews, Saeed. I'm surprised Naveen Andrews isn't everywhere after this. He really went off the trail. Although, admittedly, they all probably made their Lost money and could take a real vacation for a while.
I thought they were going to reboot Party of 5 for sure. Party of 10. Matt Fox is back out there.
Yeah, right. There you go. So she shoots him, but he survives. There's just a graze. She breaks up with Saeed, basically feeling like he's abandoned her for Locke. And in the last moment, this moment that I really, really dig is that John says, thank you for saving my life. And Saeed's like, I didn't do it for you. Now take me to the hatch.
Take me to the hatch.
It's a great moment because it shows that all along he has not fallen for any of Locke's baloney. Locke tried to lay all these layers of smoke. I'm not going to take you. I'm not going to take you. And it ends with Saeed being like, I read you. Like you can't pull one over on me. I know you.
Yep. And the interesting thing too is he doesn't press the issue on any of his story about Boone. No. He leaves all that alone. He sniffs that out because John, at the end of the day, it was an unintentional thing. It's the hatch. That's what he sniffs out. And before we go to the next episode, 2 Sawyer nicknames that dropped in this episode. He calls Charlie Chucky, and he calls Aaron Baby Huey.
I'm glad you're on the Sawyer nicknames because that was definitely something that I kind of blew last time. With trying to get through 20 episodes, something had to go, and Sawyer nicknames
many gems
glazed over.
Yeah.
Now, I will say I run hot and cold on this next person. Born to Run is our next episode. It's a Kate episode, and There are definite Kate episodes I like. I don't particularly care for this one. I did enjoy whatever the case may be, and I know everybody hates whatever the case may be. I enjoy when she and Sawyer are bantering and having their little drinking game and stuff. This one is more about someone's poisoning Michael while he's building the raft. And earlier we saw the raft get burnt, the first raft get burned down by Walt. So now it's like, who is poisoning Michael? And it goes back and forth between, is it Kate? Right. Is it Sawyer? What's going on?
There's a little bit of competition for that last spot on the raft. Kate is kind of seems like she's trying to manipulate her way onto that raft and get Sawyer out of it. So there's some suspicion of maybe some framing of Sawyer is happening, you know. But you're right. I kind of fall hot and cold on Kate too. I think even Evangeline Lilly, the actress, had some comments about not being thrilled about the way her character was written a lot of times. Because it's true. Kate runs, right? Everyone has their gimmick, and they Kate runs away from things. They kind of, I don't know. I wasn't into the doctor boyfriend guy in this episode.
Yeah.
Like later in the yeah.
Yeah, and I think she, her frustration of being always like the linchpin in the love triangle and like that being her character's only function, which is a common complaint among men writing for women sort of over time, is like it always seems to come down between a love triangle, and a woman's role is only to serve a linchpin in a love triangle. And I do think they eventually made that her character's focus, and that was a weak element.
Yeah. Yeah, she's stunning. Eventually,
well, the only function of this episode is really just to draw out the who's going to be on the raft, and in the end, it's Sun who is trying to subtly poison Jin so that he doesn't go on the raft. She's worried that if he goes on the ocean, that he's going to die. She'll never see him again. So she's trying to make him stay. Jack is the one who figures it out. He susses it out by going through the water bottles and realizing that Michael drank out of Jin's water bottle, and that's what really happened. But in the end, this episode is really about truth coming out. Kate is revealed to be the criminal to the whole group. Sawyer lets it out, and she is forced to deal with the ramifications. And in the end, Sawyer gets his spot back on the raft, and Kate is sort of semi-ostracized by a lot of people now that they know she was the one in the handcuffs. Also, Walt confesses to his dad, I burned the raft, and I'm worried and scared of what it's going to mean to go out on the water. And in the end, his truth is, no, Dad, I really do want to go on this boat, partially because the only really redeemable moment for me in this episode is Locke and Walt touch. And in a moment of touching, Walt sees something. His whatever his shining is, the shining power of Walt. He turns to Locke and he says, "Don't open it. Don't open it." Like he sees the hatch and the ramifications of the hatch, and he says, "Don't open it." And then this pushes Walt to decide, I do want to get on this boat. I do want to get the heck out of here. This is bad news.
Can we touch on let's address the Walt thing, right?
Yes, please, because in my opinion, not only have I mentioned in the last episode of this show how the characters of color are maligned and misused. One of the early friendship questions between Fire Guy Ryan and I was, hey, if you were going to make a Lost comic book, what would it be about? And I said it would have to be about Michael and Walt. I would make a full comic book run, 12 issues, all about the things that we didn't know and understand when it comes to Michael and Walt, because they really were underused and misused.
Yeah, and it seems like they were to make Walt a super-powered entity, and the others hammered it into our heads that he was special. Apparently not special enough to just recast him. Like, just recast him. TV shows do it all the time. Like, I've seen interviews where, we had big plans for Walt, but man, before we knew it, the kid was a teenager and his voice dropped. It's like, oh boy, gee, how could you possibly solve that problem?
Didn't see that problem coming.
Come on, man, just recast him. I thought there was going to be some, I'm actually curious of what it's moments like that make viewers think that they freestyled it a lot, and that they didn't have a grand plan for a lot of things. They just set up stuff to be filled in later. Because I don't know, it makes me curious of what was the plan for Walt.
And that's why I felt like when Ryan posed that question, which is a great question, he was just like, what would a Lost comic book look like to you? Because I felt like Lost tells its story in its 6 seasons, but like what was missing for me was pivotally Michael and Walt and that story and how it would play out and be valuable over time. So for me, that would be a way to do it. And in this moment, though, we get Walt telling Locke, "Don't open the hatch," and then it triggers him to get on the boat. And that's really it. Skip this episode otherwise. It's really just not worth it.
And they suspiciously start to introduce a character, one of the background Losties named Arndt. Arndt starts piping up a little more around this time, and I think they're setting him up for a little something.
Obviously, right?
Yeah.
So let's jump into the finale. It's a 3-hour finale. Exodus is what it's called, and it basically the flashback is interesting and kind of cool, but it really is just a great way to show how these characters were interconnecting with one another before they get on the plane. It's all the arrivals, all the early moments through the airport, through baggage claim, whatever, everything that got them from hotel to plane. So we can kind of see the things they had in common or the way they were sort of dealing with their lives and brushing against one another as they get on the plane. Other than that, the Exodus has 3 main storylines. We have the raft launching and those guys on the raft dealing with trying to potentially get rescued. We have Rousseau showing up and convincing everybody that the others were coming and that we needed they need a plan. And that plan apparently is to hike across the island to a place called the Black Rock and get some dynamite so they can open the hatch and all hide in it, which is ludicrous as a rescue scenario. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But we'll skip that bit. The third bit is Rousseau. Apparently, her ulterior motive is to kidnap Claire's baby to replace or possibly trade with the others for her own child.
Because she has overheard the others say, "We need the boy." Which we find out at the end of the episode is Walt, because he's so special, right? They need Walt. He's the boy they're talking about. They get the baby back from Rousseau. You're right. The flashback sequence is cool because we're up until this point we're so used to single character flashbacks, and this is one where it's everyone in the same flashback, but it makes sense because they were all in the same location.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. That was well done for a season finale, and the acquiring of the dynamite is definitely a highlight in this episode. Arndt, who we mentioned before, and they set him up to make him just unlikable enough that you weren't too bummed out about it because he was a little bit of a know-it-all, this and that.
Well, the actor plays it so beautifully.
Well done.
You both you know this teacher. You had this teacher somewhere in school, right?
Yep.
It's like so beautifully played that you can actually laugh at a character dying like that.
Yeah,
it's
and
hysterical.
I'm a fan. I like because there's 2 different characters that I dislike on the show. There's the ones that I dislike in a good way. They're doing a good job. They were written well. The actors are well. Joffrey on Game of Thrones is a great example.
Right.
You hate him, but I don't. I'm happy that he's on the show. And then there's characters that are just totally disinterested. I wish they weren't there. Shannon kind of falls into both, but at the end of the day, I fall into because at least they kind of ushered her off eventually. But I put her in the first category of I'm pretty sure they wrote her in a way to kind of bug you. Anyway, Arndt grabs the dynamite. Mr. Know-It-All blows up. Our gang, John, Locke, and Kate and Hurley are left to pick up the pieces of Arndt's.
Literally.
Yeah. Grab the dynamite. And that's when I love scenes between John and Jack. This whole show is about John and Jack for me.
Well, that's it. Yeah, the man in black versus the man in white. There's this sort of like yin and yang thing that happens, whether it's the man in black and Jacob, or whether it's Locke and Jack. There's this great arguing of personalities, right? War of ideas going on.
Right. And when they're grabbing the dynamite, and I love when John's kind of like uh, John is grabbing the dynamite, being careful, and halfway through he stops and goes, "Bzzz," almost like a game of Operation, and
Right? I love
it
it.
ticks off John. I mean, it ticks off Jack, and Jack with that fired up intensity. You like to
Oh
play
man.
games, John?
Right?
He's like, absolutely, with a big
You know,
smile on his face that Terry O'Quinn delivers awesomely.
well, and obviously, what the other layer of that too is he's joking about operation with a surgeon, right? Like
Ah,
somebody
yes,
actually is an operator in that way.
nice. Nice.
So good. And I agree, like that sequence, the dynamite group getting to the hatch is the reason to watch this episode. The stupid, she took my baby and chase across the island Rousseau thing is worthless and annoying and a waste of time, except for when so Saeed and Charlie go chasing Rousseau to get the baby, and when they run into one of her booby traps, and Charlie gets dinged in the head and he's bleeding, and they have to burn gunpowder in the wound to close
Rainbow
it.
style. Yeah.
Dude, that is wicked cool. That whole sequence is like killer.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a real waste, and it does seem to imply that Rousseau sort of staged the whole thing, the smoke, the everything, just for this chance, and forced most of the men to scatter the island so she could have an opportunity to do this thing, which kind of ruins the others as a threat, in my opinion, because it's just her game.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the episode caps off with they blast off the dynamite. As they're blasting it off, Hurley runs over. The numbers are bad. Don't do it.
Before we get to
Okay.
that, they have to hike across the island with the dynamite. There's a fun little play where they draw straws, and Kate is the one who's supposed to carry the dynamite, but Jack switches the backpacks to make sure she doesn't have to walk and carry it. He carries it.
What a
They
gentleman.
get attacked by the smoke monster, and Locke almost offers himself up to the smoke monster. He's like, take me. I'm fine. I know you won't hurt me. But then it grabs him and tries to drag him away. Jack has set his backpack down because he wanted to run and he knew he had the dynamite. He goes in to rescue Locke. He's pulling him from a ditch, and he gets Kate to run and get the dynamite. He's like, get it out of my backpack. And she's like, it's in your backpack?
Yeah.
She goes, they throw the dynamite in the hole, and the smoke monster vanishes. And Jack, of course, has the argument with him, like, do you like want to die? And he's like, no, like it's my, that thing wouldn't have killed me. He has this faith that smoke monster is not going to kill him. And then, of course, now Kate is really mad at him, Jack, that he swapped the backpacks around. The other part of the story, though, again, is the people out on the raft. It's really like boring, in my opinion. It's not particularly interesting, even at the very end when it's just Michael in the water screaming Walt. Like, I don't know. But yeah, they get back. They go. Now you were saying they're setting up the dynamite.
Yep. And the only thing that's really memorable about when the raft takes off, that's where the soundtrack and the orchestra shines on the show, because they make that raft taking off into this glorious moment because of that freaking orchestra that they inject into these episodes. Like, excellent soundtrack on the show.
I don't know if I told you, like, for an anniversary present, my wife got us tickets to go up to I can't remember.
Yeah, you saw them live.
Yeah, it was Lost live, right? And it was Giacchino and his orchestra, and they had a screen where they could project scenes and footage, and then they had actors out there to come and talk. And the producers, one of the producers, it was Cuse, it wasn't Lindelof, because he was doing Leftovers in Australia. It was amazing to hear the orchestra live playing that sequence that you're talking about, the raft launching. It's like gives you chills. It's amazing.
Yeah, really is. So yeah, run to the hatch, launching dynamite off the hatch. Hurley's running up. Numbers are bad. Don't do it. Too late. Blows the lid off the hatch, and the episode ends right with them peering down into the hatch.
Yeah.
And you are left. That is the mystery you are left
how
with.
deep this thing goes, right?
That
How
thing goes
deep this
deep.
hatch really goes.
I remember reading about people that were they were bummed out or disappointed that that didn't get answered in the end of the season, and I'm glad they didn't because it plays in so well into season 2, and I think it was good to just that was a great way to end season 1, peering down the hatch.
And of course, on the other side, the boat gets destroyed because they get discovered by the actual others. The others do show up. They did want the boy. They just didn't want the baby. They wanted Walt. They blow up the raft. Sawyer gets shot trying to shoot one of them, and they're left in the water with Michael infamously sort of screaming Walt's name.
Infamous, yes. And Sawyer nickname in this one, he calls Mr. Friendly Zeke.
Sorry, I was talking to Kate there for a second.
That's okay. The Sawyer nickname, he calls Mr. Friendly Zeke when they pull up on the boat, on the raft.
Yeah, another solid work from them all around. So now we jump into the Dharma part of season 2, right?
Season 2.
The first 3 episodes, in my opinion, are all one long season premiere. They overlap pieces, and if you can watch season 1 or season 2, the first 3 episodes, you should watch them together. It should not be a thing where you watch one, wait a week, watch the other, because they really do go together. You're talking about Jack's flashback, Man of Science, Man of Faith. You're talking about Michael's flashback, Adrift, where you see what's happening with the raft folk, and John Locke's flashback, Orientation, where you see John inside the hatch. For me, the first of those 3 is the best. Man of Science, Man of Faith. You get Jack meeting his wife, rescuing her, saving her through surgery, trying to help her to walk again, and somehow magically being able to do it. And then running stadiums and meeting this odd sort of Scotsman who is preparing for a trip around the world.
Yep. And this is when Lost takes a pivotal shift, because season 1, Lost is kind of it's a real mainstream. I think I heard you describe it as like a scripted Survivor. And even though there's some weird stuff, you do get some smoke monster here and there, but for the most part, it's a survivalist show with flashbacks fleshing out these characters' lives, and you're just getting sprinkles of weirdness. Season 2 goes straight up weird sci-fi stuff, almost like some David Lynchian type vibes once you get into the hatch, and it starts to lean more into what the show will become, which is more of like a sci-fi mystery, really out there type stuff. The season 1, it's like almost, it's a mainstream like adventure show almost, compared to where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of like How to Survive, and then this new season was like, wow, there's a lot more to this island than just trees and smoke monsters. Now there's like a whole like 70s flashback world going on. You talked a lot about how this episode, Man of Science, Man of Faith, has a great opening sequence. Do you want to talk about what you were saying?
I do, man. The most epic opening sequence of, I don't know what show can top this, because you open up, we're left, you remember where we're left on season 1, peering down the hatch. Season 2 opens up, and you're seeing a guy jump out of bed, doing a morning routine, and we're so used to Lost messing with flashbacks. We're not thrown off that we're not seeing people on an island because, hey, maybe it's a flashback. His hair's kind of long. Maybe it's Sawyer doing something. I don't know.
You're definitely asking yourself, who is this guy? I wonder which one of our guys this is.
Yeah, you're like, what's going on here? You start seeing, if you start looking close, you're noticing some kind of retro stuff going on in the background, some kind of old-timey looking like technology, and then an explosion happens, and that Lost orchestra starts pumping it up. The strings start banging.
And even towards the end of, just before the explosion, the place is weird. Like you start noticing some things that are just a little bit off. He gets this little case out, and he has to give himself an injection in the arm.
Right.
You're like, what is this? Like it's not
jumpsuit.
Yeah. The things that he has around him, it definitely just feels a little bit off. And then you're saying this explosion, and then it all just shifts.
Yeah, it pumps up, and I one of my favorite like things about season two in the Hatch is I love the aesthetic of like retro sci-fi, retro technology. It almost gives me like original Star Trek series vibes, you know?
Yeah, you
Like
got the old computer, you've got the
yeah,
old sound effects, you got the radio, the CD, sorry, the CD player, the record player. You
record
got all
player.
these little elements that are just aged.
Yep, and the technology that he uses to look into that hatch because he has something in place, and it's like an assortment of mirrors and like a telescope and an assortment of mirrors that he's able to look through, and he can see up the hatch. So he has like this cool, plan in place for if someone does pop in, puts on a big old spotlight, and
He's got
bang,
guns. He
yeah,
goes
oh,
in,
he's
he's got like
strapped up,
a
dude.
room full of guns.
And yeah, an armory. And I think there's a big beam of light shoot out of the hatch, right?
That was in one of the Locke episodes when he first finds it and Boone has died and he's pounding on it.
Mm,
The light flashing out.
right.
But we get this glimpse of, wow, there's somebody living in this thing. It was not abandoned. It was not anything. And
Yeah.
of course, Locke wants to still go in. He goes right in. Jack is like, no, we can't use it anymore. We might as well go back and protect everybody. Kate initially agrees, and then she gets a bunch of rope and follows Locke, and they go in. He lowers her down in because she's just going to go for this. Jack finally realizes this isn't going to work. Oh, yeah, you're right. She's going down in, and just as she's almost to the bottom, he turns this floodlight on, and she screams,
Yeah.
and then she's gone.
Right.
Right. And then when Jack gets there, nobody is there.
Yeah.
And he's got to just go lower himself down in. And he goes down the hallway and he sees the moving mirrors and he sees the key around his neck levitating. There's a magnetic wall that's like pulling. Something's going on behind this one wall. There's a noise. And he gets into that crazy computer room. The music starts playing. And then all of a sudden there's Locke with a gun to his head.
Yeah. I love that
like,
he gets
what
like
is happening?
assaulted with sound and light. Like it's used as a weapon. Like he's just walking through and he just gets assaulted by that super loud 70s, I forget the song, but super loud song we hear in the beginning. Lights blasting on him. It's like a super tense moment. And what makes me laugh about the final scene of this episode is when he sees the hostage situation, right? John's looking at Locke. Desmond's got the gun to him. We've already had flashbacks this season of Jack and Desmond meeting each other in the stadium. See you in another life, brother, that kind of stuff. And they must have told Desmond, the actor, of like, hey, we need to hit home that you're the guy from before. So make sure when you say brother in this scene, really lean into it so it hails it home. Because you never hear a more forced brother. Because usually just casually, hey, brother. He's like, don't move, brother.
Those boys dang head off, brother.
Well, and
I do love that, like right before you see his face, Jack asks Locke, is this your destiny? All of this? This is what you've been trying to get? You fought all, Boone died to get us in the hatch. This is your destiny? You're being held at gunpoint by some crazy guy who's been locked up in here for God knows how long?
Yeah. Not getting more than 100 minutes sleep at a time.
Yeah. It ends with Jack realizing, oh my God, I recognize this guy. He was running stadiums with me. And then it jumps into Adrift, which is the mic. I'm going to just blow through Adrift. I'm sorry, Noah, if you love it, everybody. But Michael is flashing back to signing away the custody to his son. That's off of the island. He's flashing back to that. Meanwhile, they're adrift. It's just Sawyer and Michael floating. The raft is broken apart. Sawyer is digging a bullet out of his shoulder. He's just basically struggling to keep consciousness. There's like sharks bumping the raft, and they're just arguing with each other, blaming each other for this situation. And for me, the only value is ultimately when they realize that the island is still so close, they are being slowly pulled back to shore on another side of the island. They land and they're struggling. Jin comes running out of the jungle. They thought he had died out in sea. He's tied up and he's screaming, others, others. And there's a group of sort of ragtag, just ratty guys.
They look so ominous too, especially when you see Mr. Echo in the center. He looks scary, dude.
Just
that
like
big staff.
No shirt, bare chested, just holding this giant stick, looking all big and tough.
Yeah.
And then ends. Boom. Right there.
Next episode. Because I
And
know
for
you
me, that's
got
the only value to this episode. So then
yeah,
you jump to
that's fair.
orientation.
Yep. Boom.
And
Orientation.
orientation is
Maybe
basically
and honestly, orientation might be one of my favorite episodes of the season. Definitely of the first half. Um, Lock episode.
it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, we're off. When it's a lock episode, I'm in because I always love. There aren't that many bad Lost flashback episodes. I loved everything that they had going on in with Locke's past. You know, they
My only
hammered home.
complaint for Locke episodes is they can sometimes be a little sad sacky. It's like he's always dealing with the same
Yeah.
problems, and it's you want him just to like get a win somewhere.
Nope. Nope. I guess they're just really hammering home the he was a chump off the island. He's a champ on the island, and that's why he is so determined. He doesn't want anything to do with getting off the island. You know, even if and just to leave a breadcrumb, even if there was a vehicle to get away on that island, I bet you he'd blow it up. That's how much he'd want to stay on the island.
Absolutely. Yeah. No
But,
desire to leave. Yeah. If they arrived to rescue him, he would just be like, I'm staying. You guys can go. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. So, boom, he's dealing with his dad. He's really stalking his dad. That's actually kind of creepy. He stalks his dad a lot.
Yeah. And it's about anger management, right? It's about getting over your issues. He's in a group trying to get over the fact that his dad has basically abandoned him twice. And he's met a woman and she's dealing with similar issues, but he just, even for her, who he really is showing a genuine love for, Katie Seagal from Sons of Anarchy, Married with Children.
Peggy Bundy.
And so he's showing a lot of genuine love for her, but he just can't get past his issues with his dad.
Yeah, and when he does link up with his dad, he's like, I just want to know why. And his dad is like, you needed a father figure, I needed a kidney.
Yeah.
Bang, even Stevens. And he's crushed by that.
Well, and ultimately, this is a sign for Locke. The whole point of the episode is he can't let things go, right? And this is now he's in the hatch, and there's a little bit of a scuffle when everybody gets free, and the computer gets shot, and they need the computer fixed. Desmond tries his best to fix it, but then it he short circuits the whole place, and he's like, "This is gonna blow up. We're all gonna die. 108 minutes is all we got left. I'm out of here." And he just runs and just leaves them all. But Locke can't let go. He can't let go. And he knows he's got to do this and figure this out. They run to get Saeed to fix the computer, but really Locke is the linchpin saying, this is real. This button needs to get pushed. They've watched that Dharma movie and he is fully convinced this is real.
Yeah, that video was so awesome. Because when you finally get to that point, it's like answers, And I maintain that Lost offers up lots of questions throughout the whole series, and you get lots of answers throughout the whole series. And my favorite answer to a question posed is, what's in the hatch? The answer was this Dharma station. And I love that Dharma station.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great foray into the weirdness that was to come. That orientation film was really creepy. In true Lost fashion, there's like pieces of film missing. Of course there is, Of course. And you know what you really realize at that moment is, because when it's done, Lost looks over to Jack and he's like, "You want to watch it again?"
No, I think he actually just says it like a statement. We're gonna watch that again.
Yeah, let's watch. And Jack's not interested, right?
Yeah, right. And that's because the audience feels the exact same way. It was the era of DVRs finally, and it's just like, we're gonna back that up. Like, we're gonna for sure. Everybody was like, we're all watching that video again, right?
Yes. And during this time, they're dealing with the button. Jack's like, whatever, screw this button. And they both represent at that time the two kinds of viewers, or even the same viewer, but where your head goes. Of you got John, who represents the viewer of, I want answers. Hell yeah, I want to see that tape again. And you're just so intrigued to learn more. And you can empathize with him of being like, if I was on that island, I would definitely want to be learning what's going on with all this Dharma stuff. And Jack is just super skeptical the whole time. The type of audience viewer that's like, this is so dumb. Why are you pressing this button? Like, this isn't real. That's another type of viewer. And it's like, I feel like they represent both sides well.
Yeah, and the drama of like, do we do this? And Locke firmly saying, like, you saw what this button pushing did to this other guy. This is a two-person job at least. I'm not going to push this button alone. We're going to do this together. You've got to be with me. And in the end, the most disbelievable part of the whole thing for me is that this computer could ever work again. And then somehow in 108 minutes, Saeed gets this thing back to working again.
It's Saeed, and he spends half the episode crawling underneath the hatch.
Man.
Like he's not even spending the whole 100 minutes, right? Isn't he like crawling underneath with Jack?
Desmond crawls around. He's got spare parts, but then he gives up. Saeed shows up. He just gets the circuit breaker going, and then does the last little component pieces on the computer. This later at the end of the season, they're crawling underneath more.
Okay, and at the end of the episode, towards the end of it, one of my favorite exchanges between John and Jack is they get the button going, it's ready to go, and John it's kind of silly, but he wants to make the point of, no, Jack, you press the button, which I understand. He needs him to buy in because Jack is the leader of the camp, so even though
show a little faith, brother, right?
Show a little faith, man. And he says, why do you find it so hard to believe? Yeah. And that's when Jack says, why do you find it so easy? And Locke hits him with, it's never been easy. Never been easy to believe and have faith. And like that just resonated really, really well.
Powerful. It's a powerful idea for sure. Yeah. And the hatch, the symbolic sort of nature of that hatch is that it's scientific, and yet it's also a leap of faith. It's like both elements together.
Yeah. Which is what Lost is in a big way.
Absolutely. I'm gonna skim through the next two episodes because there's not a lot of value to it, but there is a lot of entertainment. Everyone Hates Hugo is Hurley's episode. It's the next one when Hurley is given this huge task, which is, hey, there's a lot of food here, not a huge amount that'll keep us going for very long, but you need to inventory and then decide what we do with it. And this brings up a lot of anxiety for Hurley because he doesn't like it when people don't like him. He flashes back to winning the lottery and keeping it a secret from his friends. And eventually his friends finding out and feeling like it changes everything. And he views that the food will do the same on the island. Everybody likes him now, but the second this food thing and he's got a position of power, it's going to upset the balance. Ultimately, he goes through thoughts of, I'm going to blow it up with dynamite, all the way to I'm going to just do this plan in the end where he decides to throw a huge feast and say, you know what, this is not going to last us very long. Why don't we just have a couple of days of just really enjoying this?
Yeah, ineffective flashback. They hit the point that they needed to hit, which was, they needed to illustrate how winning the lottery affected him back in his pre-island life, of the fear of people taking advantage of him once he had the stuff, because you can never please everybody when you're the guy with all the supplies or the money.
Nobody loves the leader, right? The leader has to make the hard choices.
Yep. So it connects well to that, and I like his buddy, his buddy that works at the chicken shack, like his really thin buddy. They have funny, like almost Abbott and Costello vibes, like thin guy, big guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're a funny duo together.
Yeah. And this leads into the next one, which is another Sun and Jin episode. And I always struggle with these episodes. I feel like the backstory is real weak, and the stuff on the island is somewhat of a filler usually. This one, though, it's all about Jin taking on a job early on where he is a doorman and sort of hiding his past a little bit and getting the opportunity to meet his wife is mostly the focus of this episode.
He wears a sweet top hat throughout the episode as
a doorman. He does, the big trench coat, the doorman trench coat.
Yeah, props to him. They show how him and Sun meet, which is like, it's such a trope in shows of he bumped into her and knocked her stuff on the floor. I always see that. And I've tried that out in the real world where I'm like, hey, look at that chick. I'm just going to shoulder bash her and knock her books down. It hasn't worked that well for me, but it looks good in the movies. Like, I don't know about that as a strategy.
Yeah. And in general, it's a lot of like meet cute romantic comedy stuff. That's like, I didn't need that. I know that he wanted to give us a break from the hatch for a little bit, but it was really just slapshod for me. And she's trying to find her wedding ring, which she somehow dropped because they found the messages in the bottle from the boat. She thinks that he's dead, so she's burying it symbolically. She just buries her ring when she's doing it at the same time. A lot of people help her try to find her ring. And then the more interesting stuff is we get the tailies.
Yes. I love the tailies.
The tailies have put all of our Michael, Jin, and Sawyer down in the like a pit. They've locked them up. and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They don't know that they're both from the same plane. They even throw Ana Lucia. They make it look like they captured her as well.
Yep.
She gets a little information, and she gets the gun off of Sawyer, only to find out maybe these guys are legit. They're not from the others. And in the end, they, after some awesome bits of making fun of Sawyer, I love when like they throw the door on him and leave him down in the pit, and they cut to black, and he calls her a bee right there at the end.
The nickname for this episode was, well, maybe last episode, is he calls Ana Lucia Hot Lips, which I like.
Ooh, yeah, nice one.
But the cool moment in this episode was in the Taily section. Mr. Echo and Jin are off marching through the woods. They hear something. They dash out and hide in a bush, and you get a glimpse of the others. All those early glimpses of the others in the beginning of season 2, you savor them, because at this point you don't know who these dudes are, you know? So, and that's the moment when they're hiding in the bush, and you see just that feet level, them walking by with that really creepy, dirty teddy bear.
Panda bear. Right? Sorry, I was thinking panda bear because the panda's in the chat. Sorry.
Yeah,
an actual teddy bear goes by. Good to see you, Issues. I'm sorry I didn't say hi to Biggie Shack, Old Wolf, Unruly Simeon, Bake the Snake. Thank you guys. And Comic Tom was in here for a second too. I'm sorry, Tom, that I didn't say hi to you. But yeah, Panda, nice that you arrived right when the teddy bear happened. I do agree. I'm so glad you mentioned this, Kenny, because it is a great, really, only our second official time seeing the others.
Right. Yeah, we don't know what their deal is yet.
And in truth, though, the feet that we're seeing are not the others. They're 2 of the kids from the tail section that have been taken over to join that.
Yeah. Right.
I also skipped over a real beautiful moment, which is at the end of the Hugo episode, when they're finally reunited with the Tailies.
Oh, yeah.
We see that Bernard is actually alive, that Rose's faith that her husband was actually alive is there, and he is holding out the same hope that she was still alive. And the actor's realization that his wife is alive is amazing. And you know that it's him. You get that feeling because the way he's talking, the way he's moving, and the questions he's asking, you're like, oh my God, this is Bernard. And he says, I'm Bernard. And you're just like, I was a wet rag. It was amazing.
Yep. Yeah, when Mike delivers that to him in that little other hatch area, I agree. That one took me aback too. That was a solid.
It was just beautiful.
Normal. Yeah.
So we're on the last 3 episodes that Kenny and I are going to break down, and these 3 definitely go together. They all center around the tail section crew and the front section crew being reunited. We have Abandoned, which is issue 6, which has to do with a Shannon flashback. Did I miss something? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
You're good.
Shannon is dealing with in her flashback, her father passing away very suddenly. And we saw earlier that it was potentially at the hands of, or the decision-making of Jack, because his wife was in a car accident before they were married, and he was saving her in the hospital, and he had a choice between helping her or helping the guy that was in the car accident with her. And he chooses her, and the man dies, and that looks like it was Shannon's dad. Shannon's dealing with that and sort of feeling abandoned by him, and her stepmother not really helping take care of her after that, financially or otherwise.
Boo-hoo.
While on the island, she's feeling the same way about Saeed not necessarily taking care of her there either.
Boo-hoo. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really, honestly, she's an annoying character. It's hard to really handle her trials and tribulations, but we get another creepy Walt vision. Do you remember this sequence?
I think, is that when Shannon sees him, right?
Yes.
Yeah. In the woods, in the rain, if I'm not mistaken. I forget what he tells her. Does he tell her something, or does he just appear?
He's speaking, but we can't hear him, right? He's covered in water, and it seems like I think somebody says that his lines are backwards. It's really kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And she's chasing him through the jungle to try to find him. While Saeed is like, this can't be real. You know, it's just, we'll find the dog together. They're looking for Walt's dog. And she is obsessed because she's feeling like, I'm not going to abandon this dog, and I'm not going to abandon Walt like I was abandoned. But the only valuable part of this whole thing is Sawyer is dying, and the Tailies are trying to hurry him back in a stretcher. It's all very scary. They're being the whisper sounds are all around them.
Yep.
And of course, what's that?
It's dark. Visibility's low. We're heading for a little bit of a collision between the tailies and our crew. Shannon runs into Ana Lucia and the others. And
Ana Lucia, after her experiences on the island, was ready to rumble. She had one bullet left in that gun, and Shannon gets it. Which
popped. And Shannon runs. The reason she runs like that towards them is because Walt comes over and he's like, "Hey, psh, come here." So, right? Because I think she chases a vision of Walt.
She chases a vision of Walt. I don't know that he calls her to follow. I think she can't let it go.
I like to think of it as, I think those visions of Walt are the smoke monster. So I like to think of it as the smoke monster set her up to die. I think the smoke monster was like, let me give her a little.
Don't say the smoke monster didn't do anything good for the show.
There he is, man. So boom, he goes. You know what? When I was looking at my papers, I forgot a moment, and I think the moment was in. It must have been. Man, was it back in season 1 when they were gonna go get the dynamite and Sawyer was gonna take off and, set C? Because it's worth mentioning. It was that moment between Jack and Sawyer when they thought they probably were not going to see them again.
Yeah.
And Sawyer mentions meeting his dad.
He confesses the moment that we saw earlier in Sawyer's flashback, right? That Sawyer met Jack's dad in Australia and realized it on the island because of things that they have in common and things they say.
That was a real moment, dude. That was like great acting from the Sawyer guy. I don't know his actor name, but great performance between those two. And they're always so like at each other's throat. It was cool to see that.
Josh
and
Holloway.
Biggie Shack, I agree. 60 Days In is an awesome show. I couldn't believe I saw him say that. I'm obsessed with 60 Days In. It's a show about people going into prison. Anyway,
wow.
Next episode.
But there's another moment there too when they're all taking off and the raft is hitting out, and that early at the end of season 1 where nobody is saying goodbye to Sawyer. And it's a beautiful moment because you see Sawyer's reaction that nobody's there to say goodbye to him. And it's this same moment is flipped later on in the series when nobody's there to say hello to Kate. There's a moment when everybody's being welcomed, hugged with open arms, like, oh, I missed you, I missed you, I missed you. And nobody's there to see Kate. And that flip of a moment, those moments are beautiful side by side.
Agreed.
So yes, Shannon gets shot. Saeed's holding her. He is having this fury reaction. It cuts to the end. It's the end of the episode. And the next episode is a continuation only in the sense of catching us up on Ana Lucia, because it's called The Other 48 Days. And we get a day-by-day account of what happened to the tailies in their 48 days on the island. And I freaking love this episode.
Amazing episode. No flashbacks. It's no filler. It's just action. Because they catch up the whole Taily section experience. It opens up with a really well-crafted scene, like good cinematography where they recreate the tail section plane crash. When I rewatched it, I was impressed by like, man, this was how many years ago? That is like a really well-done scene. They recreate the crash for the tailies. I always liked all those characters, and it was sad that most of them, all like for Bernard, were gone not that much long.
Yeah, they didn't last terribly long. I always felt like the show struggled when they introduced new characters and make the audience love them. And so in this case, I do think some of them were big fans. I know that Ana Lucia was never popular with fans. Bernard was very popular. Echo was popular, and then apparently that actor wanted to leave the show. So he didn't like living out. He pushed himself out.
Oh, I didn't know that. Was the general consensus people not digging Ana Lucia?
Yeah, I think she was just everybody wanted Jack to end up with Kate. And so anything that was like a love interest for Jack was like, get rid of this girl. Just like Juliet. A lot of people hated Juliet for the same reason.
Yeah, if I could pick between the two, I probably would have liked to keep Ana Lucia around, because I feel like they could have filled Juliet's role with someone else in the Dharma crew. Because Ana Lucia was like, she's what Kate probably should have been. She was like a really cool, strong female character.
Yeah.
She was the leader of that section. Echo was an interesting character. Libby, I feel like that was abrupt. I think, you know about the whole like DUI situation.
That's what Bake the Snake is saying. She was cool, but she got a DUI.
Yeah,
hello to TJ Watson. Good to see you, brother. And
hey,
Comic
TJ.
Books NYC. How you doing, man? We're
Yeah, sorry
almost
we're not
done. We're on the
engaging too much
last
in the
2
chat.
episodes.
I'm trying to be respectful of John's time because I know he's jumping out with Tony Sanders soon, so I don't want to spend too much time in the chat. But I'm seeing it, and I love you guys. Libby, man,
Yeah.
they were teasing something of like her in the insane asylum. I have to think there was more to it than that. I don't think we ever got a true Libby flashback, right?
We do actually,
Yeah,
if I recall correctly, but that's definitely down the road a little ways.
yeah,
Some of her like connections to Hurley and things like that.
right. But other 48 days, it's like it's all nonstop action. They bring you up to speed. I like how they're like naming the days, like day 10, day 20, day 30, and it's cool. It's setting up the stage here, and the coolest thing is this is the first up close and personal experience we're having with an other. You know?
And I love that. Like, this is, for me, it's almost, you said it's a setup, and I totally agree. They're setting up a lot of things so that we get to know these characters a little better than we in the little glimpses we've had. But for me, this is the payoff of all the stories they've told up to now. We saw a dead body with a like a spear through it, and they're like, "That's Goodwin." Okay,
Yeah.
well, who's Goodwin? We don't know who Goodwin is. And then we meet Goodwin. Then Ana Lucia gave this impassioned speech where she's like, the first night they took 3 of us. 10 nights later, they took 9 more. And she's telling these horror stories of their experience.
I love that speech when she goes, "They're smart, they're animals." It like gives you the chills of like, who are these others?
And now we get to see the payoff of that. And for me, it paid off in a big way. I really enjoyed it, and it made me like these characters a lot more. I love the way Echo is like, we don't know anything about him, but he's right off the beach. He's rescuing people. He's talking to the little girl. He's helping give mouth to mouth to rescue this person. And then he's the one that goes into the ocean. He's like, watch the little kids for me. And he's pulling all the dead bodies in. He's like, I'm not going to let them just lay out there. That's not appropriate. He's like doing all of these things. And then that first night when when the others try to come into camp, he kills somebody. And the next day he stops speaking. And we get his first 40 days where he spoke day 1 and he doesn't speak for 40 straight days. All he does is, carve on his little God stick or whatever.
Yeah. Great episode.
And then it culminates for them when they realize one of the people in their group is an other, this Goodwin character. Anna builds the big trap where she held Sawyer earlier, was designed for a guy named Nathan that she thought was an other. Turns out Nathan wasn't. It was Goodwin, who she's been kind of friendly with.
And the writers are really heavily implying that it's Nathan. They're definitely setting you up for the bait and switch. You're like, this Nathan guy is sketchy. But it leads, like you said, to a really cool confrontation between her and Goodwin.
So Goodwin kills Nathan and makes it look like he ran away. She figures it all out, and she ends up killing Goodwin very dramatically. Goodwin doesn't give her any information. She impales him on a spear. And then, of course, it zips straight into our people, right? Jin. The last little bit is real quick cuts, day 7, day 40, day 41, day 42. And we get to see our people being found on the beach, then hiking across the island. And, of course, it ends right back where the last episode ended, which is a dead Shannon and Saeed being very upset. And then the next episode, which I said was like it's a 3-part storyline, because the third part is Ana Lucia having her own personal flashback, holding Saeed hostage to try to figure out, well, now I've ruined my one chance at people who actually would help me on this island. I've just killed somebody. There's no way they're going to let me stay with them. These people are going to hate me. I just screwed up huge. And she's flashing back to a time in her police career, because she was a police officer, when she messed up pretty bad.
And that was another part of her character that made me enjoy her more too. She was like, even though she kind of had like the tough exterior, popped off a lot, was real aggressive, but you could tell it was somewhat of a front. I mean, she was legit a tough chick, but you could tell she had a tough past. She questions herself, and that definitely put her on becoming an outcast, among the crew, which I thought was a cool angle for her. And
definitely, I thought they really did a great job, because if you remember at the season finale of season 1, they give us a hint of her. right? She's at the bar with Jack.
Yeah.
And she has a drink with Jack. And now this episode, we're waiting for the two of them to see each other. It builds towards that final moment when he finally bursts out of the jungle. But until then, it's her basically trying to, I don't know, I guess like figure out a way to save this situation. She won't let anybody leave. She's trying to just control the situation the only way she thinks she can. And her friends aren't having it. Echo is like, this is stupid. He picks up Sawyer and carries him to where the doctor is. He's like, where's the doctor? This guy's dying. He needs a doctor. Screw this. Then Bernard and Libby are finally like, this is ridiculous. Bernard's like, I just want to see my wife. This is ridiculous. And then they leave. And Michael runs off to get the doctor and bring the doctor back. And Jin stays to make sure Saeed doesn't get killed. And it all just sort of builds to this moment where Jack has to do something for Sawyer to save Sawyer. And then he hears the name of the woman who shot Shannon. And he's like, he's like, I got to get a gun. I got to get this girl. They almost killed Sawyer. They killed Shannon. I need to go get this person. And then they say the name of the woman is Ana Lucia. And he remembers distinctly having a drink with her, knowing she was on his plane. And he puts the gun away. And Echo, of course, is like, I'm not going to take you to them because there's nothing good. Nothing I'd say is going to calm you down right now. There's no way that this is going to work out.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Oh, I think it's in this. I don't know if it's this chunk of episodes where you get, maybe it's just after, where you get a Sawyer nickname for Sun and Jin, which is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I really like that one. That was a really good one. Hey, and up until this point, have we seen Sun's other man, the bald dude? Is he season 1 action?
He, in her last flashback, she was being a marriage arranged with him. So just this last one episode and found, she was at the hotel because the bald guy's family owns the hotel where Jin was working the door.
Did you catch what his name was?
No.
Because when I went back through, it perked my ears up because that character's name is Jay Lee, the killer comic book artist. You know, Jay Lee.
Yeah.
I thought I just got a kick out of that.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I feel like the show constantly had little literature and comic connections, little like pop culture cool connections.
Definitely lots of literature stuff, literature connections throughout.
So this episode ends with a bit of a reunion, right?
Yeah.
Ana confesses to Saeed that she's made mistakes, that she was shot in the line of duty and lost a pregnancy, and then went out and assassinated the criminal who did it. And now she's feeling horribly guilty, and she confesses all this to Saeed, who, after spending this whole time tied to a tree listening to her, realizes like, there's nothing I can do to make her life worse for her. She's suffered a lot. Like, it was a mistake. I get it. And he just takes Shannon's body and walks off. Bernard gets the reunion with Rose that we've wanted for so long, that moment where they're just able to hold each other for a moment.
Yeah, really nice moment there. Jin and Sun get their reunion.
Yes.
Equally as nice in touching, those two meeting up.
And then Jack and Jim.
Maybe the most heartwarming. Maybe the most heartwarming lovers that reunited, because you get Bernard and Rose, Jin and Sun, Mike and Vincent.
Yeah, and then of course the last shot is Jack comes out of the jungle and gets confirmation that it is the Ana Lucia he had met, and they just sort of look at each other and done.
Bang.
That was fast. I mean, we definitely bested Bueller, I gotta say.
We fired through it. We did it.
Speed wise.
Yeah, man.
The show, obviously, this particular portion of the season, it was end capped on either end by the death of Boone and the death of Shannon.
Yeah.
Some
Those
very
two
dramatic
had a
stuff.
tough ride.
Yeah, and it ultimately is the combining and the reconnecting of all these people who survived this horrible crash, and then the setup for Us versus Them, which is basically the next year and a half of the show is Us versus Them, the plane crash survivors and the others.
Yep, you're gonna get some Henry Gale from Minnesota coming up soon. That's another part that made this season some of my favorite. I loved him and all his stuff in the hatch. Uh, the finale, of course, which is just gonna ramp up everything to a level 10. The big confrontation between the others and our guys that's been building up for so long. And yeah, this is to me, this is just the best executed season of Lost because it exists in that little sweet spot of my favorite stuff of Lost is the sci-fi science-based genre stuff. And that's what a lot of the Dharma, the Hatch stuff is. Well, when it got more into the more supernatural areas, which it leaned into a little more on the latter end. Don't get me wrong, I love Lost the whole way through because just the characters themselves, they were all well done. As far as like the larger themes of what was going on, I liked it when it was more science-based and Dharma initiative heavy on the early.
And I think that the I agree with you completely. The science versus faith battle that the show was always kind of dealing with, it leaned science heavy at some seasons and faith heavy in some seasons. And this season in particular, I think because of the technology elements, was definitely more of a science season. I felt the same way about season 5 with the time travel and the time in Dharma Village and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whereas seasons 6 and 3 might be considered more faith-based seasons.
Yeah, I think so. Man, I didn't. Did you see NYC's?
I did, and I was going to say part of the reason I was on my phone a couple of times here is I got some messages from Tony. I was supposed to be on his show at 7, but he's got a very serious family emergency, and so if you're hoping to catch Tony Sanders slab or not to slab, that's not happening tonight. Thank you, NYC, and yeah, we're definitely going to wish him and his family the best.
Absolutely. Oh man,
the good wishes there. A family emergency going on, and so he is a bit busy with other things. So that show is not happening tonight. But I think he left a post on Instagram just kind of letting people know, but we'll say a little something here and hope that everything works out okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you, Kavi, for reminding us. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, just so I know, because I was really just trying to fire off and let
Jeffrey,
you go do your
Jeffrey on the Instagram texting me stuff, and I was like, I was waiting for an invite to pop up so that I knew that they were already started, but it never came up, and he was letting me know why.
Got it. Yeah, thanks, NYC.
So the next installment of this series will be at the end or the beginning of April. So this is we're going to be watching for March. For March, my goal is to finish season 2. Fire Guy Ryan wants to talk about the second half of season 2. So that's my goal for the month of March. I'm hoping that I can pull that off. I don't have any holiday weeks where I can just cram a whole bunch in like I was last week or a week ago. So I'll hopefully be able to get there. If you're following along, that's the goal. Finish season 2. And then at the beginning of April, we can break that second half down, which, by the way, has at least 2 of my all-time least favorite episodes.
Yeah, there's a couple stinkers in there, and I feel like most seasons of Lost kind of have that. There's some high points, there's low points. I feel like when you're dealing with 24 episode seasons, I love a 12 season, 10 season series. I feel like that's the way to go. That's the way to construct a show. It's tough for consistency, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think it doesn't get a lot of credit for the pre-binge worthy time in television history where there was no streaming and binge watching was not a thing, and they had to pull off I think there was one season where they did 26 hours of television in a year versus a Game of Thrones, which I loved a whole lot, but they only need to make in this new season, I think they're doing 6 episodes. Yeah, but they're like hour and a half long or whatever, but still less
6 like movies
season of Lost.
Yeah.
And for probably way more budget than what these guys doing Lost had for their show. So very complicated in both senses, but to compare one to the other, I think is really unfair. It does Lost a disservice, considering all the restraints they had, whether it was network television, commercials, language, nudity, violence, all these things that they couldn't really do much on their show. I think that there's not enough credit given to the shows like this that had to work within those parameters.
There are some funny like bad CGI moments, like on certain times when they go off island. I remember seeing, like, I think it's in some of the episodes we reviewed when Saeed is off in the Middle East. I think it's when he first gets grabbed for the interrogation stuff. Some of those backgrounds that they applied to it is like, they're wild.
For me, it's the beards and hair and wigs.
Oh,
sometimes.
the wigs! Yeah, we forgot to mention that
Right.
season 1 premiere, Jack's wig.
Yeah, sometimes the hair and the wigs are just so atrocious, and it's really painful. Other times they make something work, but like, in general, some of the flashback hairstyles and beards and Jack's beard at the end of season 3 is still an all-time low for me. Though we have to go back, beard is so atrocious.
Hey, Mr. Miracle says he wants to talk season 3, so that's good. You were mentioning that you could use a season 3 co-pilot.
Who was that? Who did I miss?
Mr. Miracle says
Oh, nice.
He'd like to talk season 3.
I will check in with you. I need somebody for the season 3 premiere, and then maybe the first half of that season 3. So let's talk. Hit me up on Instagram. We'll figure something out. Huge thanks to you, Kenny. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat Lost with me. You are awesome, brother. And if you have not subscribed to Kenny, I believe, Kenny, you're like 2 away from 400.
Pretty close to old 400, which I can't even believe, dude. It's so weird to me.
So please, I put the link to his channel in my description. He's chatted in the chat. You can see his name there, but subscribe to Kenny's channel and give him to 400. Check out what he's doing, because he does some really great videos. He's super funny, super just an awesome guy, knows his comics like you wouldn't believe. And then plays music, which I haven't seen on a video in a while. I think we need to get back to you busting the piano out every once in a while.
Yeah, you know what? That's not. I've got more than one request of me to play the sad Incredible Hulk song. So
there you go. I'll put in a request for any Lost themes that you want to roll out.
Fair enough.
So thanks, Kenny, for coming on with me, and thanks everybody in the chat. We've had at least 10 people every time. I know this is not a hugely popular series I'm doing, but it matters to me, and that's why I'm doing it, because I'm
glad I can at least get one person, that you, John, that I can talk Lost with. So
that's what I'm saying. Ultimately, the first episode of the series was just Bueller and I rambling for 2.5 hours. Yeah. So I would say this was a win in that it was just you and I. We were pretty concise. We were nailing this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we set the blueprint here of knocking them out. You probably don't need to knock through. You guys were really, for someone who didn't watch the show, you were pretty much laying it out for him.
Yeah, we went a little deeper than we needed to go, for sure. Okay, so you're at 399. Somebody just subscribed to you.
Whoa.
We need one person in this chat who can jump over to get Kenny to 400. That would be killer. He totally deserves it.
And reminder is, this week, I know I said in my update to my contest video, I was like, I'm going to announce my winner last Friday night. I didn't have my affairs in order yet, because one thing, I don't want to be the guy that does the contest thing and then is like, hey, you forgot me. I don't want to blow it. I don't know. Have you ever done the randomizer before?
A bunch of people I added in.
Have you ever used the randomizer thing before?
I did not want to bust into that technology, so I did the daughter pulls the name out, which, hit or miss.
Yeah. So I gotta learn that. If someone in the chat or just want to message me or something, I've never done it before, and I don't know what the name of that thing is that people use.
I think it's just randomizer.org or something.
Yeah, just randomizer.org. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to do that by the end of this week. I promise. I'm going to give away some books, man, because not only is it that top prize slab, I added a second place prize, a third place prize, and if I hit 400, don't need to
join this contest. I've already entered. I'm going to win, so that's all it is.
Yeah, the force is with you. That's for sure. You're like those numbers, man. You're lucky. Random.org. Thank you, NYC. So yeah, man. If I put it this way, if I get to 400. I'm gonna add a fourth place prize.
In honor of guys, you better go sub him up right now. Make your video and get into there.
Well, it's only one. I probably should have set the bar higher, but whatever. Get me one more sub, the 400, first, second, third, fourth place prize. I'm gonna make it rain on the community later this week.
That's awesome, man. And besides that, honestly, I just really and genuinely enjoy Kenny's channel. He does a lot of good group live streams. He's doing a lot of fun things with people. He borrowed the top 5 idea from me. He's taking it to another level. He did
Yeah.
he did what is it? You did top 10 the other day? You did top Marvel characters, top villains at DC.
Yeah, well, that was D-Runk. D-Runk and Burke Nasty did that, which shout out to them. Those are my buddies that I like to go live with sometimes. Caleb the Comic Smurf went live with me last time. He is just a ball of positive energy. He's new onto the scene. Sub up my boy Comic Smurf. Sub up D-Runk. Those are my
Those
buddies.
are good guys.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm just just getting in where I can fit in, and just know my style on when I'm just doing like kind of my freestyle live chats. Everyone's welcome. I'm a man of the people. You want to jump in the ring, and if you've never gone live before, I'm your guinea pig. Hit me up. Let's do it. Let's have a good time.
Yeah, I've jumped in a couple times. It's a lot of fun. He does a really great job. And Kavi dropped the Comic Books NYC dropped the random.org the link for you in the chat.
Appreciate it. I'm going to use that later this week.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. Bye Delphia. Bye NYC, Perry Comics, everybody who stopped by, Bake the Snake. Much appreciated. And stay tuned for another time when you can get lost.
Thank y'all. Bye.